people that are overwhelmed with their insecurities are people that are scared to death that others in their lives will find out what they're really about. Welcome to the March or Die Show today. Glad to have you joining me. My name is Jeremy Stalnecker. I am your host, and today is a solo episode. We've had some great guests on as we've gone over the last couple of weeks, and look forward to some wonderful guests in the next several weeks. But a few things that have been on my heart and mind I wanted to share with you, and so I'm going to take some time to do that today. This is, of course, the March or Die Show, where we do our best every single episode to give you the principles and perspectives you need to march when it would be easier to stay where you are and die. We all know that feeling of just wanting to give up, throw in the towel, say enough is enough. But what is better? The better option is to march, because if we're not moving forward, really, although we may be breathing, we may be doing the things that people expect from us. Really, if we're not moving forward, then we are dead. And we need to make a better decision to march. And that's what this show is about. We talk about how to march, how to move forward in spite of what may be happening in the world around us. And as I mentioned, we've had some great guests. I'm excited about some of the guests we have in the next several weeks, some folks that I'm really looking forward to sharing with you, and I know will be an encouragement to you. But today I want to talk about something that, man, I think all of us can relate to one degree or another. And you know, this is one of those, there's a spectrum, right? Like varying degrees of struggling with this particular issue. Some really, really struggle with it, and some not so much, but all of us can relate to it. And I think if we don't understand this particular issue, what it is and where it comes from, but then also understand how to move forward when we're experiencing feelings of this, which we'll talk about in just a second. If we don't know what it is and how to move forward in spite of it, then this very simple and yet insidious thing will keep us stuck. And we need to figure out how to move forward in spite of this. And what is this? What I would like to talk about today is the issue of insecurity, personal insecurity. Now, this isn't a physical insecurity. This is not related to not having enough of stuff. This is an internal insecurity. This is something that, again, I think most of us can relate to. We understand, we get it. When someone says they are insecure or I'm experiencing some insecurity, we immediately know what that means. And again, this is a spectrum. Some are crippled by this, not moving forward in any area of their life because of insecurity. But others just recognize that it's there, but after acknowledging it, move forward, and it's not a huge issue. I think for most people, though, it's something that creeps up from time to time. As we go through life, there are good times, there are difficult times. We're able to navigate most of those pretty well, whether they're good or difficult. But there are times where we feel like we are in over our head. We're not experienced enough to deal with what we need to deal with. We don't have the knowledge base to make the right decisions. Maybe we don't feel like we have the connections we need, whatever the case. But here we are. We need to move forward. We need to make decisions. We need to do some things that are required of us. And yet on the inside, the quiet part that we don't share with other people, we feel absolutely inadequate. That feeling of inadequacy, that insecurity, if you will, can cripple us. And if we're going to march when it would be easier to stay where we are and die, this is an area that we need to address. And I've been thinking about this a lot over the last couple of weeks, conversations that I've had with other people and some things that I've read recently, and have written some things down. I just want to share that with you. Again, this is different than an interview podcast or something that's, you know, conversational. I just have some things that I've written down in my notebook here. If you're watching, you can see my notebook. In fact, it says noteworthy on the front of it. I just write things down that I think about. And most of it related to this podcast and things that I want to share. And I made a list, and it's a 2-page list. On one side, one page, it is what is insecurity? Where does it come from? On the other page, it is a list of 8 things that we can do when we're feeling insecure. So I want to share those with you today. I hope this will be a help to you. Again, when we talk about giving perspectives and principles for marching when it would be easier to stay where we are and die, this is one of those episodes. I just want to share some principles with you. So when we talk about insecurity, what exactly do we mean? I'm going to now, again, if you're watching, put my glasses on because I can't see. I'm insecure about that, so I don't wear them all the time. But what do we mean? The first thing I wrote down here is this: what we believe to be true about ourselves, but want to hide from others. When we talk about insecurity, what are we talking about? Well, we're talking about that thing that we believe to be true about ourselves, but want to hide from others. What does that mean? Well, it's that feeling that I am inadequate in a particular area. I'm not smart enough. I'm not capable enough. I'm not experienced enough. I'm not educated enough. I'm not maybe intellectually strong enough to navigate what I need to mentally and to make the decisions that I need to. I'm not wise enough. I don't have the network of people that I need to connect to. It's what we believe about ourselves. And that word believe is very important. It's what we believe about ourselves, but don't want anyone else to know. Why don't we want others to know what we believe to be true about ourselves? Well, there are a lot of reasons. We're going to walk through a few of these as we go through this list. But fundamentally, we feel like, we believe that if people knew what was really going on inside of us, if people really knew how incapable, how not smart, how untalented we really are, then they would look at us different, treat us different, maybe not treat us at all. They would walk away from us. We wouldn't continue to have a relationship with them. And so we're insecure. We have a feeling, a belief about ourselves and others that we are inadequate in some area. And if other people knew it, they would walk away. It would change the way they relate to us. And again, I think all of us can connect to this on one level or another. Maybe you've been given a job that is a little bit beyond your experience level, and the people around you are saying, man, you'll be great at this. We know you can do it. But on the inside, you feel completely unprepared. Maybe it's a relationship. There's some growth happening in the relationship, maybe with the other person or people. You feel like you haven't grown as far as them, or there's something going on inside of you that you don't want them to know about, some area that you feel less than adequate. We could run down this line. There are so many different areas we could look at this. But what is insecurity? It's what we believe to be true about ourselves, but want to hide from others. We want to hide it from others. Next, I just wrote these things down. They're bullet points, but man, I think they get to it. They do for me at least. This is not fear, but can lead to fear if we think others will find out what we really are. Okay, this again, I think is very important. We sometimes equate insecurity with fear. We say, well, insecurity is being fearful of, and it certainly can lead to that. But I don't think that it is intrinsically, if that's the right word, fearful. I believe something to be true about myself that I don't want other people to know. All right, no problem. That doesn't mean I'm afraid. It just means there's something there I would prefer for others not to know. But here's the thing. If we dwell on that insecurity, or we hold too tightly onto that insecurity, then it can go from simply being something I believe about myself and don't want others to know to actually creating fear. You see, it's not fear, but it can lead to fear if we think others will find out what we really are. So it's the difference between reality, I am this, I don't want other people to know that's what I am, and an anxiety or a fear that if they find out what I am, there will be negative consequences. This is why I think this insecurity thing exists on a spectrum, because some people are able to go, when looking at themselves, I have some inadequacies. I have some areas that require growth. I have some things that may not be as good as others think they are, but that's just who I am. We'll figure it out. Hopefully I'll figure it out before people find it out, but I'll grow in these areas. We'll figure it out. We'll move forward. And they're able to do that. You see, it never becomes fear. The debilitating part, the kind of other end of the spectrum, people that are overwhelmed with their insecurities, are people that are scared to death that others in their lives will find out what they're really about. So it's not fear, but it can lead to fear. Here's the next part, and this is again important. It's not sin and not always an improper view of ourselves. It's just something we don't want others to know. So I'm not talking here about hidden sin. That's a different conversation. There are a lot of people who live with hidden sin. They have done things, thought things, whatever. There is sin that has taken place. What is sin? It's a violation of God's law for us. It's a violation of Scripture. It's what we know to be wrong. I've done something wrong. I don't want anyone else to know about that. That's not insecurity. That's sin. Okay, that is something wrong that we have done that we are afraid others will find out about. That's not what I'm talking about. We're not talking about sin. We're talking about insecurity. We're talking about something that even may and probably is absolutely true. It's absolutely true. You see, this insecurity thing, it isn't about telling ourselves lies. It's about how we handle the reality, the truth of what's going on inside of us. Sin is I've done something that I know is wrong and I'm hiding it. Not what we're talking about. Insecurity is there are some shortcomings that I'm aware of, but others are not. Again, an important distinction. We are afraid to share our insecurity because we feel like we're somehow sinning. Here's another one. It's something that we believe could impact how others view us or how they treat us. Something we believe could impact how others view us or how they treat us. This could lead to a loss of respect or trust, or we believe we could, on the other side of this, be seen as a fraud or a hypocrite. Okay. Why does insecurity become fear? Well, because we believe that what people know about us will change how they treat us. Specifically, a lot of us are afraid to be found out to be a hypocrite. We've been projecting a confidence when on the other side of that confidence is a real lack of confidence, an insecurity. So what takes it from simply being a truth about us, I don't have enough education to do this, I don't have enough experience, I don't feel like I am capable, the truth leads to fear when we're afraid of being found out because of how others will respond and what others will think of us. So this thing goes from being just a reality of the human condition to becoming a prideful response, which is sin. When we start to look at all of this in terms of how will people treat me, instead of how can I grow beyond this and accomplish the thing that I now feel inadequate to accomplish. You see, there's a difference. We'll continue. Often insecurity is born out of a feeling of inadequacy, a lack of education or experience, the needs of others that push us into a role that they need. Insecurity, it can be born out of feelings of inadequacy, a lack of education or experience, or the needs of others that push us into a role that they need. This insecurity, it comes from these areas. I'm not educated enough. I'm not experienced enough. I have some inadequacy about me, some talent that doesn't exactly exist or is not enough to do what I'm being asked to do, or I've been pushed into a role that others need me to fulfill. Recognize this. Maybe the reason you feel inadequate is because someone in your life wants you to do something that you're just not capable of doing. They have an expectation they have placed on you that is unfair or unjust. They're asking you to do something that you are not equipped to do. That doesn't make you wrong. It doesn't make you inadequate. In fact, there is not even a reason to feel insecure about that. You have been pushed into something that you're not capable of doing. But because you're afraid that they'll find out you're not capable or afraid that you will let them down, you've now allowed yourself to be put in a position where you have to deal with this insecurity. It's a feeling that may lead to fear, that may lead to other things. When people ask you to do something that you're not equipped to do, that doesn't make you less than. But you need to address that reality. If I was asked as a 48-year-old guy right now to, I don't know, go and try out for a professional sports team. And I was only asked to do that because this professional sports team, because of some weird thing that may have happened in the league, needs someone. And I'm close. So they need me. They're asking me then to do something that I'm not equipped to do. If I say yes to that, that goes from being they shouldn't have asked me to now it's my responsibility or fault. I shouldn't have said yes because I know I don't have the requisite ability. So when people push us into things that they need from us, that can create a feeling of insecurity if we say yes when we know we should not say yes. Often, insecurity is developed from comparison and assumption about how others feel or think. This is, also really important. I've talked about comparison in the past, but often our feelings of insecurity are developed from comparing ourselves to others and assuming things about others in regards to how they act or think. Here's what we all kind of believe about the super capable people in our lives. They always have it figured out. They always know what they're doing. They never have doubt. In those people, and we point to people who are accomplishing things that we wish we could accomplish, there's never a feeling of insecurity. That's absolutely false. A feeling of insecurity or uncertainty is a part of being human. There are some that may have a mental disorder that believe they're right all of the time, that never doubt anything that they do. That's not normal. What's normal is recognizing I have some shortcomings, I have some areas that I need to improve, but this is where I am, and so I'm going to do the thing anyhow and try to grow through it and figure it out. On the outside, that can look to us like that person who made that decision doesn't doubt anything they do. They never have an insecurity. And so what I'm feeling is unusual. The reality is this, and this is really interesting. When people talk about what they did, the decisions they made, the actions they took, you read a book and someone explains to you some situation where they made a decision or took a step or did something. And you look at that or you read that or you hear an interview or a testimony or whatever. Very rarely do those people give any indication that they struggled with the decision that led to the action. Now, there may be a few people out there that are honest enough to say, hey, I really struggled. I wasn't sure how it was going to work out. Most people aren't that, though. Most people want to project that when they found themselves in a difficult situation, they weighed all of their options, they made a decision, they took a step, it was the right step, and they kept moving forward, that there was never a doubt. Now, again, people don't say that often. They don't. If someone says there was never a doubt, they're probably not being true. Most people don't say that, but they kind of project that. Hey, when I did this thing, it turned out right because I'm smart. Why? Because all of us believe we're the only ones who have this insecurity, this fear of being found out as fake. And so we then compare ourselves to others who had insecurities, who had fears, who had struggles internally. They didn't know how it was going to work out. They weren't sure what they were going to do if it didn't work out, but it did work out, so they get to tell that story. We look at that and we often are not able to see the times that they did fail, the times that things didn't work out, the times that their insecurities became overwhelming and kept them from moving forward in the first place. People are very quick to talk about their successes and very, very slow to talk about their failures and fears. And that's another episode. But comparison often leads to our feelings of insecurity, because we think that others don't experience what we are experiencing. So many things there, but I want to give you eight thoughts on the other side of that explanation, those bullet points. What can we do when we experience insecurity? Here it is, a couple things that I wrote down that are helpful to me. What do we do when we experience insecurity in our lives? Number one, be honest with yourself and others. Be an expert where you are an expert, and get help where you need help. All right, number one, Be honest with yourself and others. We already talked about this, but feelings of insecurity, those are not necessarily fear, nor are they sin. They can become both. But just recognizing that I am less than educated, less than capable, less than prepared, less than experienced, whatever, that's not a sin. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a reality that you need to address. Be honest with yourself about where you are, and be honest with others. There is absolutely nothing wrong with saying to the person who's asking you to do the thing, hey, I'll try to do it. I'll learn. I'll get some help. But just so you know, I don't feel like I have the education or the experience to do this on my own. So then that allows us to be an expert where we're really an expert, and all of us have areas of expertise. Be an expert there and be very quick to get help where you need help. I found that most people that ask us to do things, they want the thing to get done. They want us to be the catalyst for accomplishing that thing, whatever that thing is. They don't necessarily want us to be the one who does it on our own. What we're being asked is to accomplish something. So if you can do it on your own because you're an expert, then do it. If you can be the catalyst, the one who recognizes that's what needs to be done, and here's some resources that I can pull in, you're still getting the job done. You're accomplishing what you were asked to accomplish, but doing it truthfully, acknowledging the areas where you're less than prepared to do the job. Often this is, again, simply acknowledging I need some help here. I'll be an expert where I can be an expert, but on some of these other areas, I'm going to need some input. I'm going to need some help. Be honest with yourself and others. Be upfront about that. Don't hide it. Don't pretend. Be honest about it. That's where you need to start. Start by being honest with yourself and with others. Number two, don't compare yourself to others. I talked about this already, but don't compare yourself to others. When learn from others, grow from others, get mentors in your life. I've talked about all of those things, but you don't need to compare yourself to others. Don't look at the successes of others and judge those or judge your own insecurities and failures against their successes. You have no idea what's going on in their heart, what's gone on in other areas of their life. Don't compare yourself to others. That's number two. Number three, make the best decision you can with the information that you have. Make the best decision you can with the information that you have. This connects back to number one, being honest with yourself and others, but then make the best decisions you can with the information that you have. Often our feelings of insecurity are born out of confusion, a lack of what we might perceive as wisdom. I don't know exactly what to do here. If I had more information, if I could see the future, if I knew how things would turn out, I would do better. All of us would. But you need to be settled as much as you can in this. Make the best decision you can with the information that you have. When new information comes to light, make different decisions if you need to. But right now, the best thing I can do is make a decision based on the information that I currently have available to me. That's it. That's all you can be asked to do. That's all you should ever be expected to do. That's all you should expect from yourself. Now, that doesn't mean that every outcome will be exactly what you want it to be. That's really not what decision making is about. But you can also remove the insecurity. I'm not sure I'm going to get this right. Well, here's what you need to do. Make the best decision you can with the best information available to you right now. And if new information becomes available later on down the road, then change your decision. Make a different decision if you have to. But make the best decision you can with the information that you have. Number four, this is a little bit longer, so hear me out here. Get good counsel, but remember that you alone have to live with the decision you make. There's a second part to this, but hear this out. Get good counsel. The Bible talks about the multitude of counselors and the safety that comes from that. Get good counsel, but remember that you alone have to deal with the decision that you make. Here's the second half of this. Others may deal with the consequences, but you deal with the decision. And I think those are two different things. You're the only one, if you're the person on the spot, on the job, in the position that has to make a decision, you are the only one that has to deal with the decision that's made. Now, once you make that decision, there certainly will be consequences, good or bad. And other people will probably have to deal with the consequences of the decision that you make. And they can deal with good consequences, it's good for them. Bad consequences, it's bad for them. They have to deal with the consequences of the decision that you make. But there is a weight that comes with being the person who makes the decision that has consequences, but who makes the decision. There's a weight that comes with that only one person can carry. And that one person is the person who's in the position to make the decision. When you get counsel, when you talk to other people, you read things, you try to understand the best way to do what you're being asked to do. There's feelings of insecurity because you're not exactly sure what to do. You're not sure you have even the requisite information or knowledge to make that decision, but a decision has to be made. Remember, at the end of the day, whatever decision you make, you're going to have to own. And so whatever consequences come on the other side of that, you're the one who put those people in the position to deal with those consequences, good or bad. But only you have to deal with the decision. Why is this important? Well, it's important because when we have feelings of insecurity, I think often what we want to do is push the responsibility for the decision off on others. I talk to these people, I talk to those people, and really it's their fault or their responsibility or whatever. Also, and this is, it's just true, when we seek good counsel, we're going to get different opinions on what should be done, different viewpoints, different perspectives. And our job is to take all of that in, to do our best to understand it, to ask questions, to get help. But at the end of the day, none of those people make the decision. You make the decision. So when you make the decision, you have to ask yourself, is this a decision that I can live with? Even if the consequences are negative, do I feel like this is the best decision based on the information that I have, having sought counsel, having tried to understand it? Is this the best decision that I can make right now? You're the only one who has to deal with that decision. And that's okay. But are you willing to adopt that decision? How does this play into insecurity? Well, our insecurity is that I'm going to make the wrong decision. You might. You might. You're doing the best you can with the information that you have. But is it a decision that you believe in your integrity, in the deepest part of your heart, that it's the right decision? If the answer is yes, then you can live with that and you'll deal with whatever the consequences may be. Next, you need to have people in your life. That's a good one. You need to have people in your life that let you be who you are. You need to have people in your life that will allow you to be who you are. Not everyone will allow you to be who you are. In fact, some people are waiting for you to mess up so they can call you out on it and point to you and say, I told you so, and all that kind of stuff. So you're going to have those people in your life. You can't get away from that. But if everyone in your life is that way, then the insecurity that you have, it may be small, but it will feel like a giant because you believe that every person in your life thinks you're going to fail and is waiting for you to fail. You need to have some people in your life that will let you be who you are. And it doesn't need to be a lot of people, but you need to have some people that you can depend on, that you can talk to, that you can be honest with, that you can make mistakes in front of, that aren't going to try to call you out when you make those mistakes, but are going to believe the best in you and believe that you're doing the best you can with the information that you have and believe that you're making the best decisions that you can make for whoever it is you have to make them for. You're doing the thing the best way you know how, and they're going to care for you and love you through that. You need to have those people in your life. There's, no question that having people in your life that will allow you to be who you are really gives you courage when things become difficult. Next, and this I put on the list, it shouldn't have to be said, but I will say it. Pray and depend. Spend time in prayer. Spend time in prayer with God, asking God to work, asking Him to guide you and to direct you. We've talked before on the podcast about James chapter 4. Such a great Philippians chapter 4, James 4, Philippians chapter 4, great passage of scripture, and tells us to not worry about things, but bring our requests to God with prayer and supplication. I mean, this is passionate, asking God to work in our lives. Spend time with God. James is the book that tells us in 1:5 not to, or to ask for wisdom if we need it, and God will give it to us. Again, great truths. Spend time in prayer, ask God to work, and then depend on Him. Walk these insecurities out with God. When I talk about these insecurities, and the reason I'm thinking about all of this, it's not little stuff that we just don't feel quite adequate to do, right? I'm talking about things that impact our jobs, our families, um, the environments that are important to us that we find ourselves in, and we're being pushed to places that we're very uncomfortable with, and that there again are some areas that we just don't feel quite adequate. That's what I'm talking about. These are important issues. Spend time in prayer. Depend on God. Next, along with that, trust that God knows you better than you know yourself. Trust that God knows you better than you know yourself. There has to be something in you, if you're walking with God, depending on God, spending time in prayer, there has to be something in you that can just step back and rest in the fact that God is God and you're not. He knows you better than you knows than you know yourself. He understands your insecurity, but he also understands your potential. He understands your ability. He understands what he can infuse in you to accomplish what he wants you to do, and that he's not going to let you fall on your face if you'll trust him. So just believe that God knows you better than you know yourself. And then finally, man, this is how I wrap it all up, or kind of the final thought when I'm addressing insecurity in my own heart. If you are the one who must do the job, then do the job. I know that sounds silly and overly simple, but listen, there are so many people that could do the hard thing in front of them, but instead of taking the step, marching, saying, I don't exactly know how we're going to do that when we get there. I'm not exactly sure I have the talent or the ability or the connections, whatever. I'm not sure how it's all going to work out, but this is my job to do. This is where I've been placed, and so I'm going to do the job. So many people look at that job, feel the insecurity, and allow the insecurity to keep them from moving forward. And a lot of people struggle and suffer and deal with negative consequences because the person who needs to march, whether they're there rightly or wrongly, they're there. They just say, I'm not going to do it. Addressing insecurity in your life, in your heart, in your mind, in your emotions. Addressing insecurity is not about necessarily eliminating the insecurity. Although being honest with yourself and others may lead to education or experience, counsel, areas that you can grow. So it can help eliminate some of those insecurities. But anyone who's leading, anyone who's making decisions that will impact others is going to experience insecurity. It's just a part of the thing. We can't get around that. So this is not about getting rid of it. It's about acknowledging that it exists, doing what we can to close kind of the loop on insecurity, bring it all in, get as much information as we can, make it as small as possible, but then ultimately taking the next step. You see, in this situation, death is allowing insecurity to keep us from moving forward. Marching is acknowledging, I don't have all the answers. I can't really see how it's all going to work out, but I'm here. I've been placed here. I've been called to do this thing. I believe that God is bigger than me and God knows me better than I know myself. I know where I'm weak. I know where I'm not capable. I'll cover those areas with education and information and counsel. But I will also take the responsibility to take the next hard step, to take the step away from death and march forward. Life is so interesting and for so many reasons. And I think one of those reasons is because we kind of believe that successful people are people who never doubt, they never question, they never wonder how it's all going to work out. Successful people aren't perfect people. Successful people aren't those who never have moments of doubt or insecurity. Successful people are those who, just like us, have fears and doubts and anxieties and insecurities, struggles, but move forward in spite of all those things. They make the decision to march. So I ask you, as we conclude this episode, and again, a little bit different than normal, just something I just want to talk through with you more than anything. But what are you going to do when that voice inside of you says, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not capable enough, you're going to make a big mistake, people are going to suffer? What are you going to do? How do you address that insecurity in your heart and in your life? Be honest with yourself and others. Be an expert where you're an expert. Get help where you need help. Seek counsel, but understand you're the one ultimately who has to deal with that decision. And on the other side of that decision will be consequences that you'll also have to address. Pray and trust God. Believe that God knows you better than you know yourself and would not put you in a position simply setting you up for failure. He has a plan for you and for others. And then take the next step. March when it would be easier to stay where you are and die. I hope that's helped you today, and look forward to coming back to you next week. We've got, I think I'm going to do one more episode like this, and then we've got some great guests coming up in the next couple of weeks that you're really going to enjoy. So appreciate you listening. Thank you for doing so. If you have not yet subscribed to the show, subscribe. If you haven't shared this content out with others, do that. And we look forward to talking to you next time.